I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leah. Again, my name is Sharon Parrish, and I want to welcome all of you to this service. I just want to let everyone know that today our speaker is Rev Sandra Butler, and her message is Our Wild Heart. And of course, you just finished hearing Leah Morris. She's our musician. Thank you.
The first Sunday in Advent, we light the candle of hope and faith. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1.
My central prayer is a prayer of gratitude. As I waken and breathe in the freshness of the morning air, I am filled with gratitude. Thank you, God, for this beautiful day that stretches before me. Bird songs fill the air, flowers nodding on the hillside, and a gentle breeze against my face remind me how abundantly blessed I am. Thank you.
One of my favorite teachers points out that we are always in a state of faith, that we always have trust in something. It's just not always a conscious decision. And how important it is to remember to be deliberate about what we believe in, what we trust, where we place our faith. And this is a song inspired by that knowledge. Trouble above, trouble below, trouble ahead of me. What do you know? Wake up in the morning. What do I find? Trouble is everywhere, but home. Are you feeling a little lost? Are you feeling alone? Waking up at midnight. Do you remember your dreams of riding a raft down a cool, gentle stream? 'Cause you can have peace like a river, love through the night. You can have joy like a fountain, my dear. You can be alright. You've got rhythm and harmony ringing in you. Love is true. Joy is true. Peace is true, true, true. Whatever way you're looking, there is something there to see. Is life a paradise or prison? Tell me, what do you believe? You can have peace like a river, joy from your soul. You can see love as a beacon, guiding everywhere you go. We let our hearts beat the rhythm, let the anthem we sing be. Love is free, peace is free, joy is free, free, free. Love is free, it's free, peace is free, yes, it's free, joy is free, free, free. Thank you.
Oh, so sweet. My goodness. Thank you, Leah. Leah and I have not spoken about the service or the order of service, but the song, as you will see, and I call it a hymn almost. I'm very familiar with Karen Drucker, and I don't know if that's one of hers, but it fits. And once again, collective consciousness and divine order is right here, right now, as we flow with this particular service. And I titled this service A Wild Heart, and I took it directly from Dr. Brene Brown's book, Braving the Wilderness. And I have the book, and I'm recommending it to you. She has many books that she's written, if you're familiar with Brene Brown. This is not the bestseller. Her bestseller was called Daring Greatly. This is called Braving the Wilderness, the quest for true belonging and the courage to stand alone. And you see the paradox even in the line of the title, the quest for true belonging, which she believes, and I believe we all have. We all are on a quest to truly belong. I'm not sure that all of us clearly understand what truly belong means, and I'm going to read her definition of it. But while we're on that quest of truly belonging, we also, I think, can work on desiring and manifesting the courage to stand alone when it's necessary. And again, that's a paradox, and it's the paradox that she calls braving the wilderness. And you all may remember, I think you do, because some of you have mentioned it to me. I did a talk, oh gosh, it's years ago now, and I've done it several times. And it's thanks to Reverend Ellen Davenport, who now works out at the Village, called Hell in the Hallway. And you may recall that we brought the hallway as the middle segment. We had a door closed, sometimes not very nicely. Sometimes we pulled the door closed ourselves. We had the hallway, which is known as the wilderness. Sound familiar from the Bible? And then we had the window or the door at the other end of the hallway that we were promised would always open. And what I found interesting about Dr. Brene Brown in this particular book was she felt that the wilderness, and Ellen also wrote about this too, is the point of great creativity. However, one requires accountability, one requires diligence, in the feeding and care of the wilderness. And what does that mean? In the end, she says, we are the wilderness. And the wilderness is not just one segment, it's the entire hallway. It's the entire door closing hallway and window opening, if you will. It's life. And many of us find ourselves in the wilderness and we don't know what to do. And it's a paradox because we want to reach out to others, but then we don't really want to reach out. We go into cave mode, some of us. Also, while we're wandering around in the wilderness, we become uncertain because we're not sure what's happening, where we're going to be, how's it all going to end? Or we start saying, I can't wait to return to normal. Sound familiar? Could that be anything like what we're living right now on a very up close and personal kind of way? And we're all living it. So this is part of the reason this book definitely appealed to me, because what Brene Brown does is she talks about this thing called true belonging. And here's how she defines true belonging. Not belonging, true belonging. True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world. I said with the world. And find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness. True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. Now, I can only speak certainly most of the time for myself, in that I am not always a true belonger, because I don't authentically, and you may find this a similar case to your own, speak from my authentic self. I try, I'm willing, I practice, I'm not always attentive to it. But what does that mean, speaking from my authentic self, especially when I feel alone and uncertain in my wilderness, if you will? And is belonging, true belonging, the same as fitting in? Well, here's what I found very interesting. Brene Brown, she does a lot, not a lot, that's her work. She collects and interviews people for, but not only her books, but for studies that she does on human behavior, sociology, psychology for the University of Houston. And so she took the question to the children. These are fifth graders. And the question was, what's the difference between belonging and fitting in? And here's what the fifth graders said. Belonging is being somewhere where you want to be, and they want you. Fitting in is being somewhere where you want to be, but they don't care one way or the other. Belonging is being accepted for you. Fitting in is being accepted for being like everyone else. And then lastly, if I get to be me, I belong. If I have to be like you, I fit in. Now, while these are fifth graders, I think they are universally felt by many of us who are way beyond fifth grade, okay? And it comes as something simple, and it's a conversation where we don't say what we're really thinking. We'll nod, yeah, okay, fine, and hope that the conversation ends, or hope that you can get out of there, or hope that the conversation takes a new turn. Now, the reason this mundane example is important is I think it brings up the fact that we sometimes lack the courage to be who we really are, even in a simple conversation. And that is part of a paradox of wanting to belong, truly belong to whomever we're speaking to, and to being alone, because we have created a separation right then, right there, by not speaking what we're really thinking about or have to say on that particular subject. Okay, it's Thanksgiving. I know a lot of people went home to family. A lot of people had family come in. been a long time for some folks for family to be together. I know, because I experienced it, I am now of the group of folks that's very careful about what I say in the family setting. I'm way past fifth grade, okay? That's a conscious choice for me to separate from the God of my being, who is my authentic self, consciously doing it. And then wonder as I'm driving home, why didn't I answer him when he said that? Why didn't I really tell him how I felt? Ever have conversations like that? That's your wilderness, our wilderness. We create that wilderness, and there's a lot of suffering, and it's unnecessary. So what is Brene Brown up to? She's up to trying to give us some tools to help us work through this kind of paradox that we create that she names wilderness, and how to brave that wilderness. What does that look like? In the essence, and we're not going to go through the whole book here. I would encourage you to pick it up and read it. And there are many metaphysical and biblical references that you will see that I won't give you today, but you'll be able to overlay yourselves to that whole concept of why do we separate from God when in all we are trying so hard to truly belong to our family of man. We talk about it, especially in unity. You know, we use the word connection, universal, inclusivity. And yet in a very simple conversation with a very simple way of being, we choose not to be our authentic self, which leads me into 4 practices that Brene Brown gives us that we can use to help us when we come up with those paradoxes. And I'll briefly go through the 4 of them, with the last one being the one where I'll spend probably the most time. I think you'll recognize these 4 practices as being 4 paradoxes. And they start as follows. She says, and she spends a whole chapter on this, and she refers to it much later on. People are hard to hate. So closer, move in, because we tend to hate, this is her word, people very easily from afar. It's a great paradox in life. We have our tribes, we put people into groups, and then we bring out, I like to call gossip a form of dehumanization. It's done publicly, it's done personally, and it's a way of speaking ill of someone in another tribe. In other words, and we're all, shall we say, guilty of it because it's easy to do from a distance, okay? We do it unconsciously almost, although I don't use that as an excuse anymore. I used to use that with myself. I think most of that stuff's conscious. So what is she saying? She's saying when you start that stuff of naming another tribe, sound familiar as far as politics is concerned? Do you know what they said? Do you know what they believe? And you try not to do it in a nasty way, but you've put a label. And once the label is put on there, the separation takes place. So how do we get around that or through it or navigate it? Because that's our wilderness. She's saying, move in closer. Move in closer. How do we do that? How about you just simply ask the person, could you tell me a little bit more about why you believe that? Could you tell me just a little bit more maybe about your own background? That's one way. Another way is to simply show up. How many of us have used, even some of our own colleagues' conversations as our means of understanding an entire issue? How about those of us like myself who go to the library, read a few books, and suddenly I'm an instant know-it-all about such and such, global, whatever, climate warming. Just ask me, I'll tell you all about it. What I'm saying to you and what she is saying, that's one of the tools we can use when we're in the wilderness, wandering around in uncertainty and feeling very vulnerable, is to move in closer Not step back, even though we find what's being said by someone, never mind their actions, as being somewhat abhorrent. You see, it's easy to use. That abhorrent flows right off my tongue, trippingly o'er the tongue. Isn't it awful? Yeah, the facts are it's awful. I don't like it. But in order for me not to separate, not to end up suffering in my own wilderness, one of the ways she's saying to deal with that paradox is to move in closer, to show up fully present and fully listening to what the person is saying, to show up to their hurts. How about I just recently had someone make a transition, and many people in that person's life did not care for that person. They did not want to go to the funeral, the memorial service, and some of them didn't. Others decided to show up because they knew him, because they wanted to honor his life. Now, that is a way of dealing with a paradox so that you're not left suffering. That's number one. Number two is my own take on this. Speak the truth when someone, and she uses the word BS, I'll call it drivel, because I had a lot of English ancestors, and drivel was a word that was used a lot when somebody was saying something that categorically didn't make sense, was not acceptable, and I found it to be a very useful word as opposed to BS. Okay, you all know what I'm talking about. There are people who like to hear themselves speak, and there are people who speak when they have absolutely no idea of what they're speaking about, or they're trying to do a dance of like me, like me, like me. And we don't say anything. We just let them do the dance, say what they want to say, and hope we can move on quickly. No, what she's saying is one of these tools is when people are feeding you a line, we'll call it, the paradox is to be civil. I don't know about you, but I've had my share of people who've given me a line, who've told me this, and I know darn well right in it, it's drivel. And instead of being as we used to say in ministry, a large consciousness minister, I was a small minister and said right up close and personal, what the heck are you talking about? I don't think you know what you're talking about. That, my friends, caused me more suffering in the wilderness and to be very much alone. Get it? That's a very mundane example, but it's present and it's every day. Look around for your own examples. Okay. Number 3, hold hands with strangers. Oh, I don't think I want to do that. No, we're social distancing. I can't hold hands. Really, you can't hold hands because we're social distancing. Have you ever thought about holding hands metaphysically, digitally? Draw a picture. In other words, the automatic drop down is can't do it because it's not acceptable, won't do it, not going to happen. Fine, stay out in that wilderness another 20 years if you want to. Suffer. And some of you are already probably questioning, what is she talking about? I'm not doing something that's not right. We're not talking about right and wrong here. We're talking about using excuses to separate from the God of your being and the people of our being, our own Christedness. And so what do we do with that? With the holding of hands, hold them with strangers. It's easy to hold hands with your family. What do I mean by hold hands? How about you do some small kindness, open a door, say good morning. It's very simple. You've heard it all before, and she's bringing it to the forefront. And now the last one, and this is a Buddhist teaching, actually, and you all may know this. The last paradox or practice while we're out there in the wilderness braving is have a strong back, have a soft front, and a wild heart. A strong back is a back that says, I am who I am, and this is what I believe. You might not like it, but I do. And I've worked long and hard to preserve it and to make it strong. I didn't say rigid, I said strong. So that each part of us stands together in alignment. Again, sound familiar? To be strong, a soft front, Oh boy, this is where some of us have trouble. Soft front doesn't mean you take every hit coming down the road, okay? Soft front doesn't mean that you're not vulnerable. A soft front is authentic, is loving, is welcoming, and says, I'm open, I accept, and I allow, while my strong back is holding me in alignment. And then comes the wild heart. And just so I don't miss it, I want to read this to you from Brene Brown. The mark of a wild heart is living out the paradox of love in our lives. It's the ability to be tough and tender, excited and scared, brave and afraid, all at the same moment. It's showing up in our vulnerability and our courage, being both fierce and kind. And then this takes it just one more expansive part of consciousness. A wild heart can also straddle the tension of staying awake to the struggle in the world and fighting for justice and peace, while also cultivating its own moments of joy. You see, some of us don't want to cultivate our own moments of joy because somehow we feel a little guilty that we're joyful while there's a whole lot of hurt and suffering going on in the world. And she is encouraging us to make sure that you experience your joy. And we can understand this from unity and from metaphysics. If you appreciate the joy in your life, it expands. And as your joy expands, you are making others joy-filled. And that can be a very, very, if not most significant part of being in the wilderness and not finding that when you do have glimpses of joy or times of joy, that you don't not enjoy them. Because enjoying your joy brings that joy so much to other people. And that is pure and simple unity teaching. So I say to you, and there was one other thing. I just wanted to make sure that I hit on this. Yes, and she says here, the key to joy is practicing gratitude. She does say, and this is very important, and I'll read this to you again. When you're grateful for what you have, I know you understand the magnitude of what I've lost. When you're grateful for what you have, I know that you understand the magnitude of what I've lost. Think on that, reflect on that, and find that in the wilderness as you're working with this wild heart. And she does say finally, and I want to bring this to you because it's important. Finding a wild heart, experiencing, knowing it is not easy. It is not easy. And this, she calls it her greatest call to courage. And I believe that that is so. To have a heart that can experience the paradox of loving and being with people, truly belonging, while at the same time standing, sometimes alone in your truth, is not easy. It's what we do on the journey of faith that all of us are on. And remember, as you're moving forward with this work, if you just choose to do that, true belonging, there's no requirement to change who you are. It requires you to simply be who you are and be it authentically, and let that wild heart fully develop each and every day. And so now, with those thoughts and with those feelings and with a wild heart, let us move into meditation. As we begin this time of meditation, I'm going to ask that you practice something in your meditation. And it comes from Mother Teresa, and Thich Nhat Hanh had a version of it as well. And it's very simple. I breathe. I turn up the corners of my lips in a small smile. I breathe. I smile in my heart. I breathe. I breathe and share this smile with the world. As we begin this meditation, I'm going to ask you to simply smile. Just bring up the corners of your mouth and see how that sets the tone for not only meditation, but appreciation of what it means to answer the call to courage as you are braving the wilderness, and what it means to truly belong here and now, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the seeming chaos and uncertainty is. Truly belonging is the Christ of your being, is knowing that Christ of your being. So we bring that into meditation and we affirm, I am now in the presence of pure being, immersed in the Holy Spirit of life, love, and wisdom. I acknowledge thy presence and power, O blessed Spirit. In thy divine wisdom, now erase any mortal limitations, and from thy pure substance of love, bring into manifestation my world according to thy perfect law. And it is with that invocation we consciously allow the idea of belonging, of speaking from the Christ of our being, of being authentic, simply sink into the deepest recesses of our awareness. We belong in life. We are here. We belong to the universe. It is us. Life is living in and through as you. You are as much a part of the one as the moon, the sun, the stars, and the whole of creation. And as we are centered in our Christedness, in our love, we know that that love radiates in and through our bodies, our minds, our thoughts. And as we relax, we allow that radiating love through the breath to simply move into our outer world as it becomes brighter in our inner world. We touch each other with kindness. We touch each other with truth. We touch each other with a love and a caring that says, I am here, always. One presence, one power, everywhere present. The light of God shines right here and right now in each of us. Wherever we are, God is. We show up in all areas as the God of our being. We do not separate, and we are mindful as our awareness increases when we do separate. And so it is in this gentle meditation, we remember who we are. And we know this is the way, this is the path to true belonging, to navigating the good, the choppy waters, with a breath that says, I love you, and with a breath that says, I love me. There is no need to change anything about ourselves that is authentic, that is of the Christ. It is pure, it is here, and it is now. The only requirement is for you to simply be you. We affirm this. We declare this, our oneness with Spirit, in Spirit, as Spirit. And so it is. Thanks be to God. Alleluia. Amen.
Just as you are without changing a thing, just as you are, I accept you. I see you, I hear you, I welcome you in, just as you are, just as you are. Let our hearts not be hardened to those living on the margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is where it all begins. This is how we gather in. There is a room at the table for everyone. Too long we have wandered, burdened and undone, but there is a room at the table for everyone. Let us sing a new world in. This is where it all begins. There is a room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. So no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, there is a room at the table for everyone. Here and now we can be the beloved community. There is a room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough when we share. Come on, pull up your chair. There is room at this table for everyone. All right, would you sing that with me? There is room at the table for everyone. 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 There is a room at the table for everyone.
And my closing prayer is Thank You by James Dillard Friedman from What God is Like, ET Books. Through every sprouting seed, life without let or heed, gives, seeking to be more than it has been before. You are a work of love, belonged for products of perfection's hungering to form a perfect thing. All heaven and all earth converged around your birth and labored as you grew to form a perfect you. Thank you.